Hi, this is Sean, and this channel's called Wolf Dog Moon. And on today's episode, we're going to review and discuss Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game by Goodman Games. If you like this kind of content, smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more, ring the bell for notifications, comment down below, and share with your friends. Alright, let's get into this. Alright, so Dungeon Crawl Classics. Right off the bat, you get this cool artwork, and you get this solid tome. I mean, this is a thick, fat book. I think this is the fattest, thickest, most solid role-playing book that I own. And I own quite the few. So, this one is solid, and it's awesomely constructed. The binding is, it's got this awesome binding. It comes with a black ribbon. You get just an awesome book with this. Color artwork. And here's what it says in the back. You're no hero, you're an adventurer. And then it's the DCC role-playing game is a complete role-playing game of 1970s appendix and fantasy style role-playing game, and it's put out by Goodman Games, and that's about what I paid for it, and I got this off of Amazon. So I like this artwork too. It has an awesome organic feel to it. Now, before we jump into this one, I just want to give you kind of a quick overview so you can get the idea of what Dungeon Crawl Classics is. Now, what I would say that this is, in terms of a Dungeons and Dragons style fantasy role-playing game, is that this is meant to kind of simulate a style of role-playing from back in the day, back in the 70s. Like, this is the kind of thing where essentially you've played this hobby for a long time, and maybe you've tried all the other systems and you remember fondly, this is how we played the game back in our day, kind of thing. And so if you're trying to bring somebody into this hobby, you would, that's how you would be. And it's the kind of thing that this is trying to be more hardcore in that way, and it takes out some of the more stylings of the game that tend to feel more of like a video game or a board game. This is meant to go old school, and back in my time, we rolled dice and we used our imaginations. We didn't use miniatures, that kind of thing. And we went into dungeons and there was death around every corner. So there's a fragility to the characters in this. It's meant to be hack and slash, but in a hardcore way, where you could be one or two rolls away from death. And here you can get cursed. Terrible things can happen to your character. And also how you create your character is very strict, and also designed for the more hardcore approach to the game, where you're focusing more on your character and what your character is about than your character stats or special abilities or feats or any of that kind of stuff is removed from this game. Your focus is meant to be on role playing. Alright, let's get into this. So right off the bat, going along with that old school feel, is you get this awesome artwork in here from back in the day. When they produced this Dungeon Crawl Classics, they went and got a lot of the original artists from the 70s and 80s to create artwork for this. So you have this black and white artwork, and it's got that 70s feel, and it's got a whimsical comic slash cartoon style to it. And so you get, something like this reminds me too of Berserk, if you're familiar with Berserk. And this has all the play testers and stuff like that. So has awesome artwork in that way, a lot of black and white, and it has this really cool whimsical kind of thing to lead you into the book, and it really wants you to be about the hobby. And this is a kind of meant to be historical in a way, like taking you back to the roots of the game. and making you focus on creating unique characters and sticking with the roles and stuff that you're playing, and even how you create your character. So this explains the core mechanics in there. A lot of them are familiar to many people who have played the different iterations of Dungeons and Dragons, but if you haven't, there are also some changes that they make in here, and I'll go over those briefly. But right off the bat, this tells you how this game is meant to be different from the other systems. It does use some things from, for example, from 3.0 Dungeons & Dragons and the 3.5. For example, the saving throws are the 3 saving throws: Fortitude, Reflex, and Willpower. And this uses dice checks, so the difficulty class. It also incorporates the ascending D20 style, for example, for armor class. So everything is ascending, so you want to roll high. So you want to roll, if a warrior in plate mail, armor class 18, you got to roll an 18 or higher in order to hit that warrior. So, and then this removes stuff like prestige classes, attacks of opportunity, which is very board gamey, and then stuff like feats or skill points, so that you're not creating characters focused on power and power creep, stuff like that. And then down here it talks about other stuff like, for example, the wizard and the elf. So this are the same thing in a way. So you can be a wizard for a class, or you can be an elf. An elf is a being that already has magical properties. It's a magical style archetype. So they go back to the original style of the game back in the 70s, where, for example, in here, if you pick a dwarf, it's a type of warrior right off the bat that probably can't use, for example, magic, and is weak to magic. So that kind of thing. So focus on this would be, you do have halflings in here, you have dwarfs, elves, and then you have humans. And that's pretty much it. So that's how it was back in the 70s. Back in my day, that's how we played. And so this, again, is a way. It's trying to focus on you moving away from getting in the minutia of, oh, what's the most powerful thing I can do, and oh, I want to pick the thing that's gonna make me the best. So it kind of forces you down a path of not playing that way. So what this does for ability scores is you're gonna roll 3d6, and the ability scores are in order: strength, agility, stamina, personality, intelligence, and luck. And you're meant to roll 3d6 and allocate the score for each one in order. It does give you a little flexibility, because that's usually the first rule that gets house ruled anyway, because it can be, it's very common to roll up an almost untenable character. Like 3d6 can be very unforgiving. You can roll a bunch of 3s and 4s, and for all intents and purposes, it's just not going to be a fun character to play. And so usually, for example, back in the day when we played, we would do 4d6, and you drop the lowest dice, and we do it that way. And we found that you have a much more, the characters could be a slightly overpowered in some sense, but it avoided you ending up with these characters that were just untenable. So they use, like I said, strength. Instead of having dexterity, they call it agility. And then instead of constitution, they call it stamina. And then instead of charisma, they have personality. They do away with wisdom for some reason and replace it with luck. And that's an interesting change. It also, right off the bat, gives kind of some special abilities to, and some lucky attributes to you when you roll up your character. The thing with this, it wants you to start off as a 0 level and create 2 to 4 0 level characters. And the first mission or adventure essentially, the way it talks about it in here is it explains it as if you're going through like a funnel. So you're meant to go through kind of a gauntlet, and whatever characters survive. Again, they're in this. They're going to be very fragile, like especially being a 20, like a 0 level character, and you're gonna probably lose characters, but along the way, you're gonna kind of create a character organically. So that's what this is meant to try to get you to do, and so it's interesting in that way. I've never played a version of like Dungeons and Dragons style role playing by doing that. So that's why I wanted to get this Dungeon Crawler Classics. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, where I think in here you start off with like an occupation. And hold on one second, please. Alright, I jumped back a few pages just so this one doesn't end up being too long. But you choose different occupations to start off as a 0 level character, and you just roll them randomly. So you roll randomly and you'll end up with one of these, and then you'll have 2 to 4 characters that are 0 level, and then you get a weapon and then some basic equipment, but it's sort of like meant to be you're a very fragile character with not very well equipped, and you're just kind of taking on, for example, you could be taking on a goblin hole or whatever, and you're the local blacksmith or whatever, and you're going to take care of business there, but more than likely you may not return. So that's what this is trying to do. So you have the standard classes in here. You have a cleric. What's cool in here is they call, instead of calling it a fighter, so you have a thief again, and then like back in the day, back in my time, a rogue was called a thief because that's what they are. You know, they're sneaking. And what's cool in here is they call a fighter a warrior. I like that way better. A warrior is better than a fighter. A fighter is too much of a generic term. I mean, a boxer is a fighter, but in here you're meant to use weapons and stuff. So you got those, and then like I think I said earlier, like they have the wizard, but an elf is a wizard too. So an elf has magical properties. So a dwarf has kind of fighting, is like a sturdy fighter, and has special abilities, probably like detect slopes, and for example elves have infravision, and then they have like other kind of attributes that they're imbued with and stuff like that. So again, you got halflings. So you got the basic Tolkien. You don't have any evil races or archetypes in here that you can be as a player. I never agree with those. Like I think these games, you're meant to be on the hero's journey, and so incorporating stuff like half orc or half anything is getting a little bit too sophisticated. That's when it starts to get a little bit too in the weeds. I think you're meant to be a hero, and you're meant to fight goblins. Goblins are meant to be evil. Orcs are meant to be evil, and that's what they are. They're evil. You're not gonna that's their nature in this style of adventure. You need enemies that it's clear cut what they are, and it doesn't hurt your brain, the logic. But again, this has awesome black and white artwork and stuff. And then a lot of this book, I'm going to lower this for a second, please. Still bear with me. Gotta get up here. A lot of this book ends up being like spells and stuff. And then the monsters in the back for the dungeon master. So you got spells, but in here it's like, because they have the luck ability, you're gonna, you could have a bad day kind of thing whenever you have like a luck as one of the ability scores, or you could have a lucky time. This lets you use luck to burn, kind of like, I think of it as like Savage Worlds or whatever, where it gives you another chance because you're the hero. So luck plays a factor in this, where you can kind of use it to burn some of your ability score in order to get yourself out of a horrible jam where you're about to die, or you're gonna take a fatal wound or something. So getting close to wrapping this one up, but it's like I said, it's got cool artwork and stuff. Now, so I'm gonna close this up and give you my final thoughts. Now, something like this, Dungeon Crawl Classics, it's really awesome in its retro feel. This is a cool, hardcore way to play the game. It really wants you to focus on, trying different kinds of characters. This feels like it's meant for people who have been in the hobby a long time, and they know the pitfalls of, where the game kind of devolves too much into kind of like a metagaming, where you're just trying to pick these different feats and these different, instead of choosing stuff that would be cool in terms of role playing, you're making choices based on what's going to be the most powerful thing, or what's going to make my character so it doesn't die. This one kind of tries to do away with that and wants you to focus on the old school style of playing, where your intention's on role playing, and so your characters are going to be fragile. And this game really emphasizes that by having you start out as a 0 level character, where you just roll up a random occupation and your character kind of becomes a character organically. And so you could tell the tale of, I was a blacksmith, and everyone knows your story in the group, and your character will feel much more organic and much more real in that sense. And that's what this Dungeon Crawl Classics is setting out to do. And so if you're looking for an alternative and kind of an old school way of playing, then this would be a place to check out and try out. And it changes some of the terms, such as I said with the ability scores. You have agility instead of dexterity, and then this includes luck, and then it takes away the wisdom ability score, and it also replaces constitution with stamina. So it makes some changes and then incorporates some of the more post Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition changes, the modern D20 where everything's ascending and that kind of thing, and so it modernizes it in that way. Now, eventually I'm going to do a 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons review, and in some ways the changes that they made to make everything more homogenized, it can be a bad thing, and I'll show and give reasons in later a video. When I do that, I'll show you for the 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons what makes it special in terms of having, for example, like the armor class is a low number and you're just subtracting from the D20. There's certain aspects of it that keep it from becoming homogenized. That's the best way I'd put it. But getting back to Dungeon Crawl Classics, I'm going to give you my final thoughts now. Okay, this is a pretty cool version of fantasy adventuring. I would say this is meant for, again, the hardcore player who has been playing for years, that's been in this hobby and wants to bring somebody else into the hobby, but can explain why this game sets out to do it the way that it does. Because the first thing a new player probably is going to want to be a powerful character or a really good warrior and not risk dying. And so this kind of game is, you'd have to be able to explain, why the pitfalls of that, and how eventually the game can become very stale and boring when your character is so powerful you're hacking through 2-3 enemies or whatever in one swing, and how the game can just stall out and slow down in terms of just being focused on combat and stuff. So the intent with this is to get you into role playing and get you back to the roots of the game. And this harkens back to the 70s and in its style and everything, including the artwork and the organic feel of it. You're even meant to create an organic character. You're just rolling up your scores, and you're a 0 level character, and you might be, like I said, the blacksmith, or you might be the basket weaver or a musician, and then next thing you know, you've become a wizard. And now once you've survived that first mission, now you choose your class because it was chosen for you, and how you approached the first mission and what decisions you made. It's so the blacksmith's wielding that heavy hammer, but he grabbed the scroll, the magic scroll, and defeated the goblin. Maybe now he's the wizard. So that's what this is trying to do. It's trying to get your character to grow in an organic way. And so I would say the downside of this type of thing is its hardcore nature. You're meant to be fragile in this. You're meant to there's going to be characters dying often, and in the very first mission, like I said, you're going to roll up 2 to 4 characters and all of them could die. So this game's telling you that there's danger around every corner, and so that at any moment your character can bite the dust. And so if you hit 0, you're dead. And so the adventures are going to be heart-pounding and exciting, but also dangerous and deadly. So if you're looking for that type of thing, then this is going to be an awesome choice for you. So we hope that this video finds you having an amazing day. Comment down below, let us know if you play Dungeon Crawl Classics and what you think. And we hope that you have a blessed day and that your spirits remain high. Signing out.